Good evening and welcome to prayer meeting. And what a special prayer meeting it is. We're going to start off with a word of prayer and a couple of songs. So if you would bow your heads with us. Faithful and loving Father, we thank you so much for the opportunity to be here. We invite your presence. We invite angels to sing with us, and may you be glorified tonight, we pray. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen. Please turn with us in your hymnals to hymn number 528, A Shelter in the Time of Storm. Hymn number 528. And please sing out tonight. The Lord our rock, in him we hide, a shelter in the time of storm. Secure whatever may betide, a shelter in the time of storm. Mighty rock in a weary land, cooling shade on the burning sand, faithful guide for the pilgrim's bed, a shelter in the time of storm. A shade by day, defense by night, a shelter in the time of storm. No fears alarm, no foes affright, a shelter in the time of storm. Mighty rock in a weary land, feeling shade on the burning sand, faithful guide for the pilgrim bent, a shelter in the time of storm. The raging floods may round us be, a shelter in the time of storm. We find in God a safe retreat, a shelter in the time of storm. Mighty rock in a weary land, cooling shade on the burning sand, faithful guide for the pilgrim's bed, a shelter in the time of storm. O rock divine, O rock divine, O refuge dear, a shelter in the time of storm. Be thou our help wherever near, a shelter in the time of storm. Mighty rock in a weary land, cooling shade on the burning sand, faithful guide for the pilgrim's bed, a shelter in the time of storm. Amen. Amen. Our opening song will be hymn number 598. If you'd please stand. Watch Ye Saints is our hymn number 598. Watch ye saints with eyelids waking, though the powers of heaven are shaking. Keep your lamps all trimmed and burning, ready for your Lord's returning. Lo, he comes. Lo, Jesus comes. Lo, he comes all glorious. Jesus comes to reign victorious. Lo, nations wave the proud and stately. Christ his kingdom hasteneth greatly. Earth her lages banks is summing. Shout ye saints, your Lord is coming. Lo, he comes. Lo, Jesus comes. Lo, he comes all glorious. Jesus comes to reign victorious. Lo, he comes. Yes, Jesus comes. Verse 5. Sinners come while Christ is bleeding. Now for you he's interceding. Haste ere grace and time diminish shall proclaim the mysteries finished. Lo, he comes. Lo, Jesus comes. Lo, he comes all glorious. Jesus comes to reign victorious. Lo, he comes. Yes, Jesus comes.
Welcome to prayer meeting this afternoon or this evening, this January 20th, 2021. A very significant day in U.S. history because we actually just moved into the 46th presidency of the United States of America. So today was a pretty exciting day for many. And we are talking about some of the things that are affecting Americans in this 21st century. Who would have ever imagined that in the year 2020, last year, we would have seen an international pandemic? Who would have ever believed that we would see thousands of deaths from this pandemic? Who would have believed that in the course of just a few months, we would see changes as rapidly as we did? It is evidence that we're living in the final hours of Earth's history, and we're so glad that you've decided to join us to discuss some of the things that we can do to prepare for the return of Jesus Christ. Now, if you're a Bible student, and I know that many of you are, you know that Christ said he's going to come very soon. He's going to come back for us, and he left for us signs. One of those signs, it would be wickedness. It would be war and rumors of war. There would be nations rising against nation. There would be pestilences and famines, and all of those things are taking place right now. And because of that, we have invited a special couple here this afternoon or this evening to discuss with us not only ways that we can prepare spiritually, but some of the ways that we can prepare physically for the return of Jesus Christ. Now, I bet you're probably wondering, what do you mean prepare physically for the return of Jesus Christ? Well, faith without works is dead. And so if we have real faith, then we will have real works. In fact, faith without works is not real faith. And in preparation for Jesus specifically told us that we are to be a peculiar people. We are to separate from the world. What that looks like, we have Greg and Melissa Maitland here this evening to talk a little bit about what they've done to prepare for the return of Christ. And we want to just welcome you to Wednesday night prayer meeting. And thank you so much for being here. Why don't we start by just telling the audience this evening just a little bit about yourselves. Would you like to go first?
My name is Melissa Maitland. I'm a homemaker, a homeschool mom, and a clinical herbalist.
Okay.
Well, I'm an environmental consultant, and a long time ago we came out of the world, and that's the way we see it. Mm-hmm. We believe that God pulled us out of the world, and we've tried our best to follow that. I know Melissa is much better at that than me, and she is much better at seeing what we had ought to do according to God's will than I am. Mm-hmm. So I kind of take her cue.
Oh, you're a smart husband. Well, I have known you, Greg, we're probably going on the third year now, right?
Years,
yeah,
sure,
a couple years now.
few years.
We met in the environmental industry, actually, and I remember I would come into your office and just listen to you talk, and I immediately recognized that you weren't just someone. You were God's son, and you were a believer, and it actually played out in the decisions you made. In fact, Greg was actually my boss, and so it actually played out in some of the decisions you made and how you lived your life there. And I remember when I first accepted the job, in that initial interview, the question was asked me, why don't we pray? And I thought, here in corporate America, think about it. Who prays in a job interview? And I thought, this is the place for me. And so our relationship has blossomed over the last 2 years. We've gotten to know each other. And one of the things and one of the reasons why I wanted to do this is because of your lifestyle. Your lifestyle is very unique. So we want to talk a little bit about today, and if you're joining us for the first time, you know that we want to talk about subjects that are relevant, subjects that are beneficial, and subjects that we can actually implement. And tonight is not going to be so much about just the off-grid lifestyle that people want to live. You folks have actually done it, and you're going to talk practically, as many of our listeners want to know, you're going to talk practically about how, in fact, to do it, because you've done it. You've probably made some mistakes, and so we want to hear those too, right? Oh, yeah. So let's just start with, kind of like the broad question. What is off-grid living? What does it mean to separate from the world?
Well, do you know, Melissa and I came from a very conventional background. We had all the trappings, big mortgage, big houses, and just all the things that we consider to be those things that you want in the American lifestyle. And I guess we came to a time whenever we understood, whenever God showed us that that ought not to be the way we lived, and so we sold everything we had, pretty much, right?
Almost everything.
Almost everything. We still have a few of those things, and every time we would sell everything, we would find out that we had a whole bunch more to sell, and we decided to. And this is crucial and key. We decided to get out of debt. We decided to take everything we could out of the lifestyle that we had, and to take all the assets we had, and to purchase what we could afford without maintaining any debt whatsoever.
Let's just stop right there for a second, because so you're living the normal, typical American lifestyle, right? Big house, cars, all of those things. Yep. You have children. Right, one of which is here with you tonight.
We had three other ones with us as well. Okay. At the time.
All right, so something changed in you. Like there's kind of like an aha moment, right? So what is it that kind of triggered, okay, we need to go in a different direction? Like what is it that did that for you?
I think God had been calling us for quite a long time. And so first we got some chickens, or we wanted some chickens. He was calling us to a simpler life. And so I was drawn to a simpler life, even though my dream for my life was to have a beautiful house in the suburbs. He just kept putting in my heart a simpler life. And so that started actually with chickens. So.
Very interesting. And probably you got a little bit of taste of what that was like.
Yeah.
Did you actually have chickens?
We did before we left. Yeah.
In your house there?
No, in the backyard.
Well, I would say, okay, probably wouldn't want them in your house.
Our neighbors weren't really thrilled about it.
Probably a subdivision, right? Subdivision living.
A little bit less than a subdivision. We lived sort of out in the country. We had begun our last house in Pennsylvania before we had moved to Kentucky and taken on the full off-grid lifestyle. Was sort of moving in that
direction. It took a few steps.
Okay.
We lived in the suburbs, and then we moved a little out into the country, got some chickens, and then we fully moved out.
So it doesn't sound like you guys were like experts at this at all when you decided to do this.
We're not experts now.
I don't think any of us are. No, it's a lost
It's still very difficult.
Okay.
It's still a difficult thing to understand and get your head around.
How many years ago did you start the journey?
Oh boy.
The journey?
20.
20.
20. Okay. 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 All right.
God planted little seeds in us 20 years ago.
And we were.
Oh, maybe 24, yeah, like 24 years ago.
More.
Little
Okay.
seeds he would
We
plant.
lived in-
And we've been following a path, just following. And sometimes we couldn't see around the corner, and it was just true faith that we knew that this was the path that God wanted us on, and we just followed.
So take me from, not the 20-year journey, we'd be here for a while, but on the journey from your last house to this house, because this house is the true self-sustaining, off-grid, disconnected from the world, precious peace residence, right? So this is that house. So how did you find it? I mean, did you contact a realtor, or how did that come about? How did you find this property? You talked a little bit about, divesting of all of your assets and then taking what you had and just buying a house outright. So how did you find this home?
Melissa and I had understood that we had ought to make a change. We had felt the pull.
Okay.
And so we had said to one another, what can we do? And at the very same time that was going on, I had been laid off from a job that I had worked for 14 years, and it was through convolutions. But we said, we're going to go and find a house in central Tennessee. And we had taken trip after trip after trip down through the bluegrass. Looking.
I'd like to interject that he would, as a father of a family, he would never have left his job. I really see that as a God thing too.
Okay. Like being
laid off from his job. Yeah,
okay.
he would never have quit.
Okay.
As a father, a supporter of the family.
Previous to that layoff, though, we were making trips into central Kentucky every few weeks.
At Central Tennessee.
Central Tennessee, right. And every time, well, I say central Kentucky because every time we would come down, we would drive down the Bluegrass Parkway, and Melissa has brothers who live in Elizabethtown and Radcliffe.
Okay.
And finally I said, what are we driving through this all for every time? Why don't we look here? And then we finally had looked here. And strangely enough, we had looked at a couple of farms. One of them was very nearby here in Campbellsville, Kentucky. It was just right down the road, really. And
we were going to offer, and every time we were going to offer on a house, it sat on the market for a year or two. That morning we were going to offer. Well, we just got an offer. God was closing doors. And
then we looked at this crazy wacky shack in Springfield that has no.
Is that what you call it?
That has
it's a little cabin.
It's a small cabin, and it has there's nothing. There's no electricity tied to it. There's no sewage tied to it. There's nothing except some LPG gas in a tank in the back.
So let me just interject here. So you are on your way to visit family, and you're continually driving through this area, and you realize, well, this area is nice, right?
Yep.
And the timing worked out so that you've been laid out from your job at the time.
Yeah, we were free.
And so now you're really ready to look. And now you find a house.
Well, our house sold in Pennsylvania.
Okay.
And so we were like we were closing in 30 days. Yeah.
So this is the question then. So how do you find a house that's already not connected to electricity, right? And already kind of like unplugged. Is that what you were looking for? Or were you hoping to take a home off grid?
I don't think we knew what we were doing.
Yeah, I think at the time we didn't have
we were
have a
praying.
clue.
We just knew that we were supposed to go.
I believe that you can put a place like that together. I think it's more likely that you will build it.
Okay.
And if you have a house that is already tied to the grid and has regular utilities and everything, that you have to do some finagling, and I can talk more about that if you like, but to get it to be off, to take it off grid. Okay. It's a difficult thing to do.
You might not be allowed.
You might not be allowed.
I was going to say, for some of our viewers, this came up earlier in an earlier conversation, you had specifically mentioned when you're talking about unplugging or disconnecting from, power sources, things of that nature, that this particular home, it's important to have cash flow if you're going to buy it, because banks may not want to finance a home, existing structure that's not connected to electricity. Can you talk to that?
My understanding, and this is an old understanding, this is an understanding that's probably several years old, and I'm certain that there are lenders who will who will let you borrow money to purchase a place like this, but it's very much more difficult. Banks expect you to have a grid tie. They expect you to have sanitary sewers and water hookups and electricity, in particular electricity. Many mortgage lenders want you to have a 90 amp service or you won't qualify for them to lend you money to purchase it. So
that could be a potential hurdle to overcome if you do not have cash to just outright buy a home, if you're trying to finance this type of lifestyle, which I think that's one of the reasons why people are doing it. They don't want to finance anything, right?
Right.
Or very little anyway. They
Get out
wanna,
of debt.
Yeah. They wanna get out
And
of
the
debt.
good thing is that, typically if you're looking at a house like that, if you're looking at a place like we own, it was very much more equitable. It was cheaper. Had less value than the place that we came out of. So we were able to take the equity in our old house, get out of debt,
Okay.
and move on into a place like this.
And I would imagine too. So if you're watching and you're wondering, well, how am I going to do that? I don't have that much equity in my home. I mean, I'm not selling a big home. I want to just kind of transition now and let's talk about your place, because you spent what, about $200,000 or $300,000 for that place? Is that correct?
Oh no.
No, you didn't, right?
No,
So
not even
So
close.
let's talk about like what you started with, and let's give some hope to those that are trying to do it, because some people watching might think, well, it's going to cost thousands of dollars for me to do this. So talk me through. You found your place now, and now you're going to try to buy it.
It wasn't even finished. It was a cabin. It's like we had to sell and get rid of 2/3 of our stuff to even, and then we got there and we couldn't even fit it all in.
Wow.
So, and it wasn't finished. Like, we spent years, we're still not finished. It's just a little cabin.
And just with regard to dollar values, when we purchased that place, it was probably worth about 1/3 of the place that we had sold.
Okay.
And we had some equity in there, so we were able to do it. We were blessed in that way.
Like, getting out of debt was very important to us.
Why?
And you're dependent. You're dependent on
Oh,
banks.
you have a master.
Yeah, you're dependent on, that's electricity too. You're dependent on that. And it was just something that God kept bringing up. You'd be dependent on me, he would say. So we were willing to, whatever equity we had in our house, we were willing to, whatever that took us in. To us, it was a tiny home.
Do you see any risk in that? Was there any risk in that decision, you think?
I think there was tons of risk.
Well, the risk
We
of
were
our
terrified.
the risk of our marriage. When she talks about these things, and do you know, I will say that the Lord says that a good wife is very much beneficial. I don't know if you guys have read the last part of Proverbs, but she's more valuable than rubies, and she was the one who saw it. Most certainly, I kicked and screamed the whole time.
That's true.
Really?
I
That's
wanted
true.
my. I
For a
wanted
couple
my.
years
I
after
wanted
moving,
my
he still did,
television, and
yeah.
when I pulled into that place at first, I was like,
That's true.
"What is going on?"
That is true.
And
So you don't have a television now?
No.
So
we
okay,
haven't.
you're out
We
of
haven't
that.
for.
Okay.
We haven't for a long
Okay.
time. Even previous to that, we used to go through 5-year cycles, I think, where we would say, "No more television," and we would get rid of it, and then I would be like, "I could use some cable." and we would get it again, and then after just months, we'd be like, "Get rid of that, get that out of our
Okay.
house." So that's something that we've gotten rid of a long time ago. And don't miss. You certainly
Beautiful.
don't. You don't. You come to a point in time where you realize you're better off without it.
Right. Well, I think that we've given our audience probably a pretty good introduction of who you are, and they've learned about you and about some of your motivations for doing this. So let's talk about practical living. Okay, so you buy this place, and there's some obvious work that you need to do. Many people are wondering, okay, you got to have power, so what do you do for power? Let's talk there. Let's start there. Was there some power source there? What did you do to ensure that you can continue to live, a lifestyle that would suit you?
Yes, this place that we live in now is solar powered exclusively. All the electricity comes from solar, and we have grown to a point now where we use very much less electricity than the average household. And I'll say the same thing about water consumption. If you look at a regular, 2 kids, 2 parents, they use 200-300 gallons of water a day, and you think to yourself,
Like normally?
Boy, normally.
Okay.
And you know what? You know, and I know that's 6 barrels of water a day. That's a lot of water. Right now, we probably use 50 or 60 gallons a day, so a sixth of that. Same with the electricity. We came to a lifestyle where we used very much less, and I'm not certain about what people understand, but we probably use about the same. We probably use maybe a eighth or a tenth of what the average family our size use, even just us 2 with our daughter.
I think they'll might understand that when we say we have 4 solar panels,
Okay.
and we had 3 children when we came, 2 teenagers and a 8-year-old.
Is there a recommended number of solar panels based on the size of family that you have?
I think our whole house is 12 volt, so
Okay.
you lose a lot when you have to convert to, what is it, 220?
Regular 110, 120.
Okay.
Yeah,
120.
120.
Sure.
So you lose a lot. So if you're converting an on-grid house already to solar, you need 24, 36 panels on the roof. But since our house is straight 12 volt, we have a refrigerator, even though I did spend a year without a refrigerator because I wanted to learn how to live without refrigeration. But
Okay.
now we have one again. Because nobody likes to buy warm goat milk. So but it is designed, the refrigerator is designed to run on solar power, so it runs on 12 volt.
Okay.
And we have our lights, which are 12 volt.
Sure.
Okay.
And we do have an inverter to charge our cell phones and our laptop.
We do not have all those things that require a whole lot of electricity, a big giant furnace running all the time, or air conditioning.
No.
So I actually tried to bait you a little bit in my questioning. Forgive me, bear with me, because it sounds like your lifestyle cannot remain the same if you move off grid. I mean, if you're going to live off grid and you're going to use solar, then you have to actually reduce the consumption of power.
Absolutely.
So moving out of the city to the country involves moving the city out of you too,
Yes.
right? That whole
Absolutely.
lifestyle out of you
Absolutely.
as
You
well.
leave your TVs, you leave your
know-
game systems, you
Okay.
leave
Right.
all of that.
Okay.
Do you know, there were times when I said, if I could get 56 solar panels out here,
Yeah.
I could live just like I used to live, right?
Okay.
I could have televisions and stereos and all those things, all the trappings.
Okay.
And that really is it's not about the solar panels. It's about getting your head out of the world. It really is about changing your understanding and your expectations of what it is that's going to satisfy you
Okay.
and make you happy. And like I say, at first it was all Melissa. She wrenched me out of it, and I kicked and screamed about it. Now I would never go back. Now I would never.
I don't
go
think
back.
I could go back.
It looks like we have a question from the audience, and probably dealing specifically with solar. So we're going to go ahead and give you a chance.
I just want to know if you have a computer at home.
I do, and Derek and I work together and professionally, and outside of the friendship that we have,
Right.
we work together professionally, and you know what? It's a requirement that you have those things. That's one of those things that you say to yourself, if I intend to keep on working professionally in the world, I must endure. So yeah, I have a notebook computer, and you know what? I don't. It doesn't take very much electricity. I charge it up and I run it down. But nonetheless, we do use the internet. We use our mobile phones to have internet service at the house, and we have computers. And I don't know what else. I think we're tied to the world in that way. And do you know? I will say to you, I'm looking forward to the day where we don't have to be. You know that? I really am, because I think that all those things are again trappings of the world. They really
Okay, we
are.
have one more question.
Just a quick question, how did the kids adjust to this new lifestyle?
Our
Good
children.
Our kids did really well. We had 2 teenagers. I think my middle daughter, she was I moved her 2 weeks before she turned 16. So, and then we had a 17-year-old son, and then our youngest, Ava, was almost 8. And they did well. They did not see the cabin before we moved in. They did see us giving away and selling almost all of their possessions.
Yep.
And they pulled up, and there was this off-grid cabin with composting toilets that they had never seen before, and
Composting
they did well.
toilets are
They did well.
a thing. Do you know, and I'll just say this, it went kind of two ways. We had our middle daughter, Hannah, as soon as she came of age, she moved back to the city in Pittsburgh, and
Oh, wow.
she lives there now. And, we encourage her to come back to Kentucky, and we believe that one day she will. Our son, on the other hand, who's getting ready to turn 24, 25? 25. He put a tiny house, he's part of the tiny house movement, on our property and lives with us now.
With his
Debt-free.
family.
Debt-free,
Yep,
right?
debt-free.
Yeah. Starting
his
a new
little family,
with
yeah.
no debt.
Yep.
I mean,
Yes.
amazing.
And he has our first grandchild, Samuel.
Okay.
And so it can go both ways. Well, we encourage all of our children to come on back all the time. We tell them the driveway's always open.
Let's take one more question, and then we'll go to the next segment. Okay, go ahead.
I will say Derek and I are up for adoption.
Just give us some land.
No, I will say, we have, Derek and I and our family, we've been to your home, and it is awesome to go there. We always talk about how cozy your cabin is. And, really listening to you all, it has to absolutely be a mindset to change. But we've been there and we've experienced, even if it's just for a short visit, just that small glimpse of your lifestyle, and it's wonderful. I'm going to ask some practical questions about the solar panels since we're talking about that, because I already prepped you on a big question, because
Yep.
we're looking at this and we want to know that are listening to too. But okay, so if you could describe the solar panels that you have, how many cells per, and how much energy that produces, and if the output, how that's saved, how much energy that you have saved from that, and the cost.
So, yeah.
So
let
the
me
cost and capacity, I guess I'm asking.
Yes, and I would just couple that with, what is connected to solar and what isn't connected? Because we're going to talk about some ways you heat your home, because solar's not connected with the way you heat your home. So what is connected to solar, and what have you just kind of left off?
Really, everything that's connected to our solar system are the lights in the house,
Okay.
a refrigerator, a freezer. Anything else?
The water pump.
Water pump.
Okay.
And really, the water pump is just our home is like an RV, sort of.
Okay.
We use recreational vehicle 12-volt water pumps, 12-volt systems. So there really isn't much connected to it. I said that we probably burn about 120 amp hours a day. That's very, very little. It's probably a fifth or a sixth of what even a small home would utilize.
Do you run out of power?
Sometimes.
Rare.
Rare nowadays.
We have to run a generator.
In the first couple of
Okay.
years,
Rare.
boy, we would run out of everything. We would
Yeah,
run
when the
out of
kids
water
were
and-
not used to. Yeah, when we had teenagers and they weren't used.
Okay.
Yeah.
And there's and so that's like the thing. You come into this idea, and I'll say it with reservation. It's conservancy, but it's not. It's not austere. It's not something that reduces your pleasure of life or your lifestyle or your
Right,
or
yeah,
what makes you feel whole.
We still have comfort.
So
We have
let's.
comfort, sure.
So in terms of cost, because I think that was one of the questions. So based on what you've shared with us, it's just you three now, right? But I'm brand new. I want to live like you're living, and I have a small place, and I want solar. So what type of cost outlay am I looking at?
I would think that if you were to rebuild everything that we have right now, that you'd probably be inside of $5,000-$6,000. So I mean, and people say, and then there's annual maintenance costs. They're in the hundreds. I mean, it's really not very much. That stuff is fairly durable, and whenever you put it together, it lasts for a while.
Is it something that, with a little bit of technical knowledge, you can do yourself, or do you
Sure.
have to have someone
Greg
come in and
does it.
install it?
Oh, sure, I do
We
it all.
have 3
yeah.
batteries. Is that many we have?
You have three 600
Okay.
amp hour batteries,
Okay.
and there's a lot of technical stuff. And I think I last year we had a windstorm, and whenever we moved in there, the
It
young man that
actually was, like, we got the first lockdown,
Okay, yeah.
and then we had a
that's-
storm, and it blew our solar panels over it and just
Really?
destroyed them.
I didn't even know the batteries were still running, and my son came to me and said, "Hey, should all this stuff be upside down and broken
So
in the
we were
middle
like,
of the
this
field?"
is the end.
And I said, "No, it probably had not
So-
ought to be." So he and I had rebuilt it all then, and that was the time my son Abram and I had rebuilt it all. And that was when we really got down to the nuts and bolts of it, to be able to take care of it ourselves and to understand it completely. And previous to that, we were just sort of rolling on what
You're winging it.
we were winging it.
Well, this is fascinating, and we probably are going to get lots more questions specifically about solar, but I want to move to the next area. We have, I think, what we need to make that decision. Let's talk about water. I mean, like, are you connected to the city system? No. So how do you thrive and survive? That's the name of our segment. It's called Thriving and Surviving in the 21st Century. Homesteading 101. We're learning a lot. So talk to me about water, drinking water. What do you do? What are the options there? Because I find this fascinating too, what you guys do.
We catch rainwater off our roof. We have filters in the gutters, and then it runs into a 1,200-gallon cistern.
Okay.
And that's why we need a pump. We could use a foot pump, and we used to have those, but we haven't, like when we've been remodeling and stuff, we haven't put them back in.
Abram's
Okay.
getting ready to put those in.
You know,
his
you
little
just
tiny house.
push with your foot, and it pumps the water out of the cistern
Okay.
into the sink or whatever you're using. But
From inside?
Mhm.
From
From
inside?
right
So
at
there's
the sink, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, but
Okay.
right now we have an electric little pump
Okay.
that, is very loud, but it works.
It's not very loud. It makes a little bit of noise whenever it kicks on.
And
a
and we
recreational
have a
vehicle.
Berkey filter. I don't know, Berkey.
Berkey, yeah, familiar with it,
We have
yeah.
a Berkey filter.
Okay.
And don't we have another filter?
Yep, we have
House
whole
filters.
house carbon filters and sediment filters, and those are just inline filtration. And so we have about 1,250 gallons worth of capacity. That cistern stays.
Always. Just to your point. So do you stay full?
No.
I mean, we're in Kentucky.
No.
So do you stay full?
No, we have to
No.
always conserve water.
Really?
And especially with
1,200 gallons, it
teenagers,
sounds like
showers,
To
we
be
are
cognizant
always
of.
yelling.
Wow.
I have a young girl
Always.
who will still insist on taking 40-minute showers.
No, we would run out.
And I'll say, we can't. You can't. That's one of the big ones, because I remember back in the old life, man, boy, I would turn the water on as hot
Oh,
as
yeah,
it could, and I'd
yeah.
sit in there for an hour after a day of work when I was saying, "Just burn it out of me, God." let me bake
I
for a
used
little
to
while.
love baths, and that was something I gave up.
Oh, and
So
that's
you
something
do
we're
give
working
up
on.
baths, okay.
That's
Yes,
something
I
we're working
gave
on,
up-
though.
Gave up
Okay.
baths.
We're getting a
We have
soaking
shower,
tub.
but yeah.
So again, water, rainwater
Very-
falls on your roof.
Yes.
Which means you probably you have a unique roof then, right?
Just a metal-
is it
metal
Metal roof.
a metal roof? So you have to have a metal roof if you're going to catch rainwater. You can't just catch,
I think
you know.
you could catch it. It's just a matter of how you filter it.
Okay.
There's sand filters and carbon filters and sediment filters.
Okay.
And you can do a lot of things to make sure that water, the water that we bring in from our roof load,
Distilled water too, by the way.
it's
distilled,
essentially whenever we're washing dishes or something, it's just rainwater we're using, more or less.
Okay.
Right? The water we drink, we run through gravity filters, very
Okay.
high quality gravity filters, and they last a long time. One of those Berkeys will filter literally 20,000 gallons of water
Wow.
over the course of years. I'm still using filters that are years old, and well, you'd never know you were drinking rainwater.
I do have to tell you this. This is part of the lifestyle change. So when we turn the shower on, it takes a minute, not even a minute, seconds,
Okay.
30 seconds to get hot, right?
Okay.
I'm like,
That's normal.
and it's running down the drain. So I have a bucket to collect. We have animals, so I have a bucket to collect, and it's about a gallon.
So
It's
you're
about-
not wasting water.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, that's precious water that
So
we have to.
drinking water, free, right?
Free.
Doing
Pumping
dishes,
it.
all of those things, bath water, all of that's free.
Pretty much.
What about like going to the restroom though? I mean, like you're going to be using the restroom quite a bit during the day. I mean, so what do you do for that?
You can talk about that.
We have composting toilets. They're waterless
Okay.
toilets, and they're called waterless toilets or sawdust toilets.
Okay.
And so we have used commercial, what was it called, an airhead. It's commercial waterless toilet.
A
And it-
composting toilet that you can buy
Okay.
on the open market.
Yeah.
Which
In
I
layman's terms,
could not stand.
just kind of like, I thought that was really unique what I saw when I came to your home. It's not the traditional compost, well, at least not in my
switched.
understanding. So,
We switched
yeah,
to
so
buckets,
Yeah, so buckets, yeah, so talk to that if you
Okay.
don't mind.
So I have a bench, with a toilet seat, but inside, and we
Okay.
also have an outhouse that Greg built. But
Okay.
inside is is it 5-gallon?
Yeah.
5-gallon bucket.
Okay.
And you go, and then you simply cover with sawdust. And
So you keep a little tub of sawdust
Yes.
there in the bathroom as
Yep.
well. You take a scoop and you drop it
and you
on
cover,
top.
and as long as everything's covered, there is no smell.
Absolutely not.
No.
I was amazed. My wife and I went to the outhouse and we're like, this is
Yeah.
super
So-
clean. Traditionally you're thinking, I'm going to go to this outhouse, you're going to smell.
Yeah.
Right.
But it was like completely
Yeah.
clean and it was like no
Yeah.
smell whatsoever. And I'm like, I wonder what they do. But it's just sawdust.
So
Just
it's just
Yeah,
that.
and so-
It's like a cat. A cat covers its waste, and you don't smell it, you don't know it. It decomposes. That was my big point of contention when we moved to that place. I was like, what are we doing? We've lost our minds.
So I collect the buckets, and then when I probably have like 9,
11.
and then when they're full, I take them out way out to the edge of the property. We only barely have 8 acres, so it's not a lot. But I have compost piles, and so just pile it on, and as long as you cover it, we cover it with
thing.
hay.
You cover
no
it with
smell.
hay. No-
and
no
I
smell
pile
at
it
all.
on for a year, and then I let it sit for 2 years, and after 2 years,
Wow.
it is just this beautiful, rich dirt that we put
Right.
around.
It's,
on
use
it.
up the soil.
There was a man who wrote a book, and I know I might be going afield here, but there's a guy who wrote a book called Humanure,
Okay.
and he's an advocate of the idea that if you and I both, we work in the environmental industry, and one of the things is that we continually contaminate our water, right? We urinate and defecate into our water.
Into
and
our
then
drinking water?
And then we push it to a wastewater treatment plant.
Use
Where they treat it.
chemicals
And then-
with
and then they-
horrific
right back to
Then
chemicals.
they
yeah.
treat it, and then
they send it
they'll
right back to you.
discharge it back into the river. And then we'll pull our drinking water out of the same river, and we'll treat that. It's not a sustainable system, and I don't believe it's what God intended us to do either.
No.
I believe there's
rainwater. I mean, how much pure can you get?
Yeah.
I mean, it's distilled water.
So that's a big hurdle with the off-grid lifestyle.
It's
Okay.
not as
But once
bad
you-
as changing a diaper.
No,
It's not.
and once you,
It's
and
not.
once you,
A diaper is
once you,
worse. It
once
really
you get
is.
around it, once you get around it, I would never go back again. I look at like the usual system. Boy, and you and I understand. I understand wastewater treatment. I understand drinking water purification, and we go about it so convolutedly. We chlorinate and bromate, and we add chemicals, and we do all these things to counteract the intentional contamination and pollution of the water that we eventually intend to drink. And this eliminates it completely. And it was the biggest thing for me. It was the one thing where I said, I don't know if I can get my head around this. I don't know if I can do this. And now, looking at it 7 years later, I wouldn't go back. I wouldn't go
You're
back.
probably saving a fortune, obviously. But let's talk, so practically speaking, so if I wanted to convert so that I would not have to be dependent upon, Shelby County for my water, I would need a roof. And that's just if you're catching rainwater from your roof. I mean, you can also do a barrel too, right? But you need a
Sure.
collection point. What else would you need though? Just in just a couple short bites. You need a collection point.
You need to be able to collect that water into some kind of holding tank, and you need to be
Okay.
able to pump that water throughout the plumbing system of your house, should you so desire. There have been times whenever we have lost power, or those pumps have failed, and we have gone even more off-grid than we are right now. We have taken our wood stove and heated up water in a big 3-gallon kettle and used that for sanitation and to wash ourselves. And
Right.
boy, I know it. if people aren't familiar with it, it sounds crazy. It sounded crazy to me, but after you do it for a while, you look at it in contrast to what you had been doing, and you learn more about what you had been doing and how we deal with water in particular. And you see that we are working an unsustainable system.
So if I have a collection point and if I have a pump to pump it throughout my house, then I'm good. Or if I have, in this collection system, is it covered? Did you dig a hole in the ground, put your tank in, and then
It's covered. It's
Okay,
a cistern
covered.
that's buried in the ground.
Okay, all right.
And they're commercially available.
Okay, okay. What's the price point on a
they
cistern?
cost,
Like
if you put in a 1,200-gallon cistern like we have, it's probably maybe coming upon $2,000 or $2,000.
2,000. Okay.
It's not so onerous.
Is that also the cost of installation, because you'd have to
Sure.
dig?
Yeah, well, for me it is, because I'll get a tractor and dig the hole and install it.
Or we could just borrow his tractor.
I guess if you were going to have it installed, it might be $3,000 instead of $2,000.
Okay. All right. So moving on, let's talk about heat.
I have a couple other
Yes.
questions about that, just real quick.
Sure.
So, what is the price point on installing like those filters in your gutters? And then the Berkey system. So the Berkey system is like what would get the contaminants out of your water for
Sure.
drinking, right?
Mhm.
That's a couple $100.
Yeah, that's a $200 or $300
For the
item.
Berkey.
So
Yeah.
for a Berkey?
Yep.
And then maybe
And then for
about
the-
the same for the gutters?
For the
system?
gutters, sure. Those things, those filter inserts for your regular 5-inch gutter, I think we paid $200. I think I paid $200 or $300 to put those in.
Okay.
And we installed them ourselves. And we do a lot. We do a lot ourselves. We don't hire. We just recently began to hire contractors to put some buildings in for us, so that we would have storage and things like that. And that was a long time coming. They were long-term goals for us that we're now just meeting. But boy, if you don't mind climbing up on the roof, it's easy enough to do. It doesn't take any particular skill.
Okay,
So.
and last question. Do you guys have like a washer?
Well,
How do you
well.
do your laundry?
There you go. You've
Laundry-
hit upon it. Laundry is difficult.
I've decided that laundry is difficult. On grid, off grid, laundry is just difficult. I tried the old ringer washers from the 60s.
and we have one.
And we have one. And I just hate it. It's just so loud because you have to run it on the generator.
Okay.
And I would rather hand wash everything. So Greg installed these old cement that we found in someone's basement, old wash tubs outside. And so I have one for
An old double tub wash.
yeah,
tub, sure.
one for washing and one for rinsing, and then we hang on the line. But in the winter, I go to the laundromat and.
And so then last year we had said that we were going to utilize a generator, and we had bought an inverter generator, and it's quiet and it's easy to use, and the washer right now is sitting in our garage ready to install pretty much, and we thought that we would
A new washing machine, yeah.
we would do that for a little while. No dryer still. We would
Yeah.
still hang clothes to dry. Nonetheless, I'll bet you if anything else, that's probably the hurdle, right?
Laundry.
I mean, that's
Laundry.
been
I
the
can-
most difficult thing.
I can hear parents now saying, wash basin? As much laundry as I do, I mean,
Yep.
how would I ever do it?
Well-
But then I can hear a mother saying, well, you know what, you're just not going to wear that many change of clothes every week. I
Exactly.
mean, it's
Exactly.
again,
It's a
lifestyle change.
It's a
you know?
lifestyle change.
My son changes 3 times per day.
Yes.
That wouldn't
Yes.
happen anymore.
Yes.
I'm looking
know?
at you, Ava.
We used to, wear a pair of jeans for half a day or even a
Man.
full day, throw it in the
And
laundry.
throw it in the washer?
No, not
Then you
anymore.
wear them 2 or 3 days.
Exactly,
And,
yes.
and you know what?
Yes.
I mean, that's not.
And we've
It's
learned
not
that.
unsanitary.
It's not
to do that.
unsanitary.
No,
It's
no.
not. It's not. It just goes against that idea that we've gotten into. We had gotten into.
Consumerism and things of that nature.
Right.
Yeah.
Use it up, man.
Yeah.
You know what? That's what we would do. You were
All right.
encouraged to use everything up and use it as fast as you could. And sure, man, I wear that. Really, I wear the jeans through the workday. Wash them
Right.
and use the 15 gallons of water it takes to wash them.
Okay.
Okay, last question for me. So you mentioned a whole house sediment filter. Is that different from the Berkey?
It is.
Okay.
Yeah, but
And what's price point on that?
oh,
How
those
that
things are
works?
very, very, very. They're not very expensive at all. And well, strangely enough, we were at a well, I don't know what. It's not a yard sale, but we were at that We were at this sale in the Baptist church in Bardstown, and a guy had a box full of sediment filters that he sold me for like, I don't know, $6. There was like a dozen of them. So it's like 2 years worth. So they don't. That's not very much. I mean, you just get yourself a cartridge that holds filters, and you just push the water through that.
I think we got it at Lowe's.
Yeah, I mean, you buy that right at Lowe's.
Not very much.
It's the $30 for the cartridge, and then
like
a couple of bucks per filter.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know, so but the only thing you have to watch then is you'll hear your pump straining a little bit, and you'll realize my filters are loading up, and you got to
see.
swap that filter
Swap them.
cartridge
Yeah.
out, and when you do, the pump flies again, and it's easy peasy, really. It's not a lot to it. We also keep a filter coming out of the shower, just a coconut coir filter that just takes away the sediment, because a lot of sediment comes in. We have to clean that cistern every couple of years, and when we do, it's you're pulling some sediment out of there. Of course, if you're collecting water off of your roof, there's going to be some sediment.
yeah, right.
Nonetheless, though, I always look at it as the difference between when we lived on grid, we would, and again, coming from the environmental industry, I was aware of these things. You know, I had chlorine and bromine in my water, and people think, oh, well, that's just what you get to clean your water. That stuff's poison to you.
Right.
That stuff's poison to you. Fluoride is poison to you. And
Right,
I could go on and on, but we don't got time for that.
Yeah.
But those things, for whatever reason, governments have proposed to put in our drinking water. Her and I always say, you know, our air is poison, our water's poison, our food's poison,
Right.
and here we are having to deal with it all. And one of the great things about the off-grid lifestyle is just making that change that we had made. We didn't really have to stop then and think about, how do we get the chlorine out of our water? How do we get the fluoride out? No,
'Cause it's not there.
It's not there
It's not
anymore.
there.
It's gone.
So let's transition. Let's talk about how you heat your home. So do you use wood?
You would.
Okay, all right. And it's, I think one of the reasons Deanna talked about how cozy it is because you have that stove right there in the center of your living room, and it heats the entire home. So how much wood are you burning?
We'll burn between, and I won't use Kentucky terms. We came from Pennsylvania, where they sell wood by the cord. That's what, 128 cubic feet of wood in a cord. We'll use between 3 and 5 of those a year, and it's readily available around here. And we'll harvest a fair amount of it off of the property as well.
Okay.
A lot of trees are ready to be harvested, and they come down, and so we'll do that.
Is this a cooktop as well, or?
It's cooktop, sure.
It's a
We'll
cooktop?
cook on it. I'll make some ranch beans on top of there,
Okay.
and we'll use it to heat water, and we'll do a lot of things with it. I mean, it's always hot. It's burning hot right now at home. I'm sure.
I could not build a fire when we moved.
Really?
Did
Now
not know
she'll
how.
build one.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, just like
Is there a certain type of wood that you recommend if you're looking for this lifestyle?
We take hardwoods. You know, I mean,
Okay.
take oak and hickory and all the things that grow around here.
Okay.
We burn a lot of ash. There's been a plague of ash trees in this part of the world. There's ash borers. That the ash trees are all dying, just like the elm trees died back in the 80s, and it's a shame. It's rough, and you wonder about what's going on. I believe Melissa would back me up with the understanding that we're watching God's creation perish.
Right.
We really are. We for many years would raise bees, and it became more and more difficult to raise bees because they could not withstand the pesticide load, the herbicide load, and those bees would die.
Right.
And then now we see the birds dying, and now we see larger animals struggling, and we wonder, what's the end result of that? Eventually,
Yeah.
it's you and I
Yeah.
who are going to suffer those consequences of in my opinion, poisoning of the world that we're experiencing. We really are, and it's a shame.
Yeah, we're told in the Word that God will eventually destroy those who destroy the earth, and that's exactly what's happening right now. Can you give us kind of an idea of what you're spending on just heating your home over the course of the
Oh,
one
boy.
winter?
Yeah, I mean, I think at most, and I will compare and contrast. When a couple of houses ago, we would spend what, $300, $400, $500 a month
In the
heating?
winter, easy, yeah,
Correct.
easy.
on heating, just heating the home.
Okay.
Now I don't spend that in a year. I mean, $500 will get me all
In a
the
year,
wood I
wow.
need to burn for the whole season. This year, I think I'm $350 or something like that. And I'm only halfway through with that wood. And it's been a mild winter this year, so I won't have to get any more than that. As a matter of fact, I'll probably have some left over for next year, or to make campfires or whatever we decide to do through the
Right.
spring and summer months. But it's vastly different.
Okay, very good. So we've talked about heating, we've talked about water, we've talked about power, but this is not all, because we also have learned that there's food sources on your property as well. And, the recommendation for the average American is to have at least 3 months of stored food, like have that stored up.
Yep.
But you guys have done much more than that. So what are some of the food sources you have on your property? Now, I'll just disclaim that many of the people watching, you may be a vegetarian, and I don't think you guys are, and that's
We are
okay.
not,
But just talk about some of the different ways you've managed to find food on your property.
We produce, I think at one time, we had counted it up, and there was 23 different food sources, and granted, that was during the summer months, whenever we had lots of vegetables growing, and the winter months comes down. And yes, we have meat sources, rabbits, goats, chickens. We have milk sources with the goats, and all the vegetables that we can grow. And you know what? We tend to grow the things we like to eat. We make a lot of Italian food and red sauce, so we grow a lot of tomatoes and garlic and onions. But it doesn't stop there. I mean, we have
Fruit trees and nut
fruit trees,
Okay.
nut trees, wild things that grow that Melissa, with her being an herbalist, has discovered on the property that we had no idea were even there when we were first living there. And so we eat a lot of that. We eat when we try to propagate those food sources as much as we're able. And it's like a curve, I mean, like the more that we're able to grow our own food and have our own food sources, the less we go to Kroger.
I was going to ask that.
The
I was
less
going
we
to
go
ask
to
how
Kroger.
often are you shopping? Traditional families, they go to the grocery store 2 or 3 times per week, maybe more, depending on what you need.
We go weekly. We could go longer. Our youngest daughter just turned vegan, so she needs
Really?
lots of fruits and vegetables, fresh. So we are learning how to feed her.
And we
So we go more often now for
Now,
fresh fruits and
yeah.
vegetables while we're transitioning.
Okay.
Yeah.
in the same breath, the Coulters, or who are they? I hope I don't mention their names, and I'm not supposed to over the air. But we have
Too late.
we have built and encourage and try to maintain relationships with local farmers who just have everything.
Right.
We do a CSA, is that what you call it? We do a CSA every year with
What
the
is a
local
CSA?
farmer.
Why don't you
What is it?
explain
What does it
Community
stand for?
Sustained Agriculture. You pay a certain amount in the front,
Okay.
might be a couple $100, might be $300, and then you get a weekly basket.
Oh boy,
of
is it
And
fun.
that's it? So you pay one time and that's it?
And
For the
they
whole
have a
year?
season, but
Okay.
yeah.
It's
Wow.
like 20 weeks or something, right?
Yeah, and
It's
lots of
almost
them have
half
a
the year.
fall.
Okay.
I do want to say that these are skills that we have failed at. We were not farmers, and I wouldn't even say that we are farmers now.
Okay.
This is information that I think our culture has lost. How to
Right.
take care of yourself, how to feed yourself, and not be so dependent on, the systems.
Right.
The electric system and the water system. And so these are skills that our forefathers knew. They grew up.
New well.
Yeah.
Well.
And so these are skills that we are learning through trial and error, through failure and error. It's learning new skills by yourself. It's difficult. But you know what? We just keep going, and then we'll get a new skill under our belt, and then we go on to the next one.
Yeah.
But
And a lot of it, I imagine, is an exercise of faith as well.
Oh,
yeah.
You know, you exercise your faith and then God delivers. You just
Yeah,
have to step
yeah.
out, right?
Somewhere in Jeremiah it says, follow the old paths. So I try to focus on that for our little farm. We're following the old paths.
We had just purchased a greenhouse, and it's actually sitting on our front porch in 2 big giant boxes, and we're getting ready to install it, Abram and I, over the course of the next few weeks, so that we can get in and be propagating our own seeds through February and March.
So we can feed Ava.
So we can feed Ava.
So, okay, let's transition now to what I'm really excited to talk about as well, because what do you do when you're trying to live this sustainable, self-supporting life and you need a physician or you need health care? You kind of have the whole package, right? You're an herbalist by trade, and so I want to talk a little bit about herbs. And so I wanted to start by saying, why are herbs important to you guys? And in some of the ways, how do you use them?
They were our original food. God designed, us to eat plants. And then we fell, humans fell, and then after the fall, he knew this going in,
Right.
they were our medicine as well. So they were the original medicine. All of our forefathers that came before us used them as medicine. And only now in the last 150 years is our medicine coming out of labs. And it's, that it doesn't heal us. The pharmaceuticals, it covers up symptoms, and what pharmaceuticals do is force your body into a place where and what happens is there's lots of side effects. So if you have high blood pressure and pharmaceutical forces that down, you haven't fixed the root of the problem.
Right,
So it's
yeah.
going
It's
to
just a
come out
symptomatic approach.
somewhere else. So then they put on another pharmaceutical. What herbs do is support different systems of the body through nutrients. Sometimes they just give information that they have learned, like where they're from. So, for example, marshmallow is a demulcent. It's very moisture, so it can feed or give moisture to a very dry part of your body. So it's just herbs support through nutrients and information, and it helps your body heal itself.
So this is a proactive approach, and it's also a natural way to let what God has given us in nature heal us, as opposed to taking medicine. We totally support that too, because we believe that the Bible is the sole authority, and it is a health book itself. It is a health book. And herbs and natural remedies, they actually treat the root cause of the issue, as opposed to a symptomatic approach where you're just covering up the illness or the symptom, and it turns out to be something much worse that you can't reverse much later. And so you are a master herbalist, though. So we're not talking about someone that's just starting in this work. So I wanted to ask you a couple questions about herbs while you're here. And that is, what are some of the essential herbs do you think, if you're moving to this lifestyle, you would need to have on hand, and why?
Why, I wrote a list. I sat down, I tried to keep it down to 10, but I couldn't. And so I got it to 17.
Okay.
And so what my criterias were, can you grow them easily? And
in this area.
And
right?
in
Depending on your area.
So I picked my area of Kentucky. So you would have, if you live in California, you would have some different herbs. Or
Right.
Florida with different herbs. But I picked my area of Kentucky, and like I said, I'm not a farmer. I'm not great at growing things. So I picked easy things that I didn't think I could live without, and faced with a complete grid down scenario, I feel like these 17 herbs, I could treat almost anything.
Really?
Not everything, of course, but we'd be
now
doing
we're all
well.
excited to hear
We'd
what
be
they
doing
are.
well.
So
These are just
write these down, write
these are
these
just
down.
my personal choices. But
All right.
number one would be nettle. So when in doubt, use nettle. It is super nutritive, and you can use it for just all kinds of things.
Okay.
Yeah.
I almost want to start by asking, okay, how would you use it? But since there's 17 or not
Yeah,
time, so
okay.
we may have to follow up. so.
Okay. The second one would be lemon balm. It's very calming to the nervous system and the digestive system. You can use it for grief and sadness, ADD, ADHD in children.
Really?
Start with lemon balm. Yeah, antiviral. Okay, and these grow so easily.
Are we talking about tinctures here, or?
No, teas, tinctures, salves.
Just-
yeah,
Okay. all
just
right.
the plant itself.
Okay.
Elder, berries and flowers, easily grown, and just, I do have to, it's antiviral, antibacterial, it supports the immune system, colds, flus, fevers. There is, I think his name's Shook, he was an herbalist, and he said, it's wonderful for newborns too. He said, I have never known it to fail, even when given up at the point of death. It will not only save at the 11th hour, but at the last minute of that hour. It is so harmless that you cannot use it amiss, and so effectual that you cannot give it in vain. Elder, one of my favorites. So plantain, it is a weed that grows in driveways and behind the house, and people try to kill it with.
Even here in Kentucky?
Yeah, it's everywhere.
Really?
It's
Okay.
everywhere.
Okay.
It draws toxins from the body. If you get some kind of bee sting, run out to the yard, find some plantain, mash it up, throw it on there. It'll pull that.
We used to back in the old life, plantain would grow in the front yard, and I'm like, I got to get this out of here. And you'd be digging it up. Now it grows all over the place, and we just let it go, man.
My front yard is full of plantain, and I'm like,
We need to figure
God
out how
has
to
blessed
identify
me.
plantain.
It's
The
considered.
next time, we're going to have you guys back, and you guys are going to have
Yeah.
to walk us through how to identify these things
Okay.
too. So, okay.
Okay, number 5 is mullein. It's very good for all respiratory.
Respiratory,
6 is yarrow, and when you think of yarrow, you just think of the blood. Yarrow just knows where to go in the body, and it's rumored that Achilles took it into battle with, not for him, but for his fellow soldiers. So any kind of bleeding or injury, you want yarrow.
So what does it do? Does it bring, does it cause the blood to clot, or does it purify the blood?
It purifies the blood.
Okay.
And yeah, it would just help any kind of injury heal. It's called cure-all, as it's one of its
I see.
nicknames.
Okay.
Okay, dandelion, another thing we think of as
Which is edible too, right?
very edible,
Yeah.
very nutritive, and the roots support the liver really well. Garlic, cold
Okay.
flu. I mean,
Absolutely, yeah.
garlic is incredible.
Universal.
Chamomile, anti-inflammatory across the board, very calming, very soothing. Valerian root, it's a knocker-outer, pain. What else? Let me see. Insomnia, anxiety, muscle relaxant. Okay, so those were my top 10, and then I tried to stop there, but I couldn't. So aloe vera, of course, any skin conditions, burns. It's a very strong laxative, very strong, but it is a lot.
Really? So if
Okay,
you're having some problems going, then
you could
it's-
use aloe vera,
I
yes.
see.
Calendula, wound healer, bruises, burns, sores. Echinacea, just because it boosts the immune system and it's so easy to grow. Comfrey, they say don't take it internally. Herbalists do use it internally because it can affect the liver. It's, it can be toxic to the liver, but, if you know someone who knows what they're doing, herbalists will use it for a bone that just won't heal.
A bone.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's called knit bone is its nickname. And so you can use it on poultices or salves externally, but you can use it internally very quickly, 2 to 3 weeks, if you have a bone that just won't heal.
Wow. Okay.
So, and plant it underneath a fruit tree. That's all you got to do. It'll be fine.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Marshmallow. Plant it near a creek. Just very moistening. There's all kinds of dry. It can affect all kinds of systems: the respiratory system, the digestive system, the kidneys, anything that is a dry condition. You want to give marshmallow to just to moisten.
Okay.
Lavender, St. John's wort.
She makes me take St. John's wort every day.
So these are herbs that you keep on property, and obviously you're probably not putting them in a pill form and storing them in your cabinet. You just know where to go find them if you need them.
Yes.
Right? Okay. Would you recommend maybe having kind of a buildup or storage of any of those, or
Tinctures?
'cause some of those you can't find in the wintertime, I would imagine.
Yes.
Others you can.
Tinctures work. Tinctures are a concentration of the herb preserved in alcohol. You can preserve it in glycerin, vegetable glycerin, but that will last 2 to 3 years. An alcohol tincture can last 20.
So do you go to the doctor ever?
No, I don't. He has
Okay.
injuries, so
Okay.
For trauma.
yeah.
That's it.
Right.
Modern medicine is very good for
For
trauma.
trauma.
That's about
Short
it.
term.
That's about it.
Okay. All right. Okay. Great. So we're actually over on our time, but I do have just 2 more questions, and then I would like to give the audience a chance to ask any questions that they may have. There's certainly been some lessons learned over the last 7 years, right? So I want to talk about what are some of the things that going into this maybe you had the wrong idea about, or you just discovered since you've been doing this. And I want you to specifically address some of our audience that may be thinking about this. What are some of maybe the pitfalls, the areas that if you could do it over again, you'd say, okay, hey guys, this is what you should do. Okay, don't make this mistake. But do this. This is kind of like the high priority list. So what are some of those key points over the last 7 years that you can help us with?
I think that I would remove my prejudice. I think that if anything, I don't think that any of the challenges that we have faced in transitioning to this lifestyle were particularly difficult if you approach them with an open and positive attitude. And that was it with me. I was prejudiced against these things. I wanted my MTV,
I think for me, I didn't realize that these were skills that we would have to learn. It's not just, you just start taking care of chickens, or, you just eat. Everything was a skill that we had to learn. So, and some of those skills took a little longer to learn.
Some of them, all of them were achievable. Everything,
Yes.
and it's still a work in progress for sure. We learn more every day, but open mind and learn it and live it every day and do
This
it.
is information that we're losing, and we've lost. A lot of our culture has lost it. Just like with the herbs, it's why I became an herbalist, because it was information that we were losing as a people. And same with the skills. It's information that we're losing.
We know folks who, for whatever reason, they look at us and say, well, we could never do that. We hear that quite a bit. We couldn't do what you're doing.
You're just choosing not to.
And they're
You
choosing.
could.
They're choosing not to. It's still their prejudice.
As a Christian, though, I mean, there is a time coming, a terrible time of trouble, where if something happens and there's a power grid failure, for you guys, I mean, how much would it impact you, really?
Would not.
We
It
probably
really
wouldn't know at first.
Yeah, you wouldn't even know it.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's why it's important for the person that would say to you, you guys are crazy, I would want to do it. They would probably want to switch places with you if something like that happens. And we believe it's going to happen.
I mean, you know what? It's
gonna happen. So-
unfortunate. It's unfortunate that we're living in. Well, you know what I think? It's fortunate. How blessed are we to be able to
Right.
live through these times right now?
Right.
you know?
Amen. Amen.
But from the worldly perspective, it's not something that people are going to come into lightly. We always tell everybody we know, and I think I've told you, come on down the driveway whenever things get
Did you hear that,
crazy.
guys?
Come on down.
No problem.
And so you know what we
No,
have.
Melissa didn't say that, by the way, so you have to be careful.
We have our children and our brothers and our sisters and our brothers and sisters in Christ and whomever, and we encourage them. We say, hey, if things get tough and you don't know where to go, come on down the driveway. We'll put a tent up.
Right.
We'll figure out a way, and we'll figure out a way to
We'll put you to
provide.
work.
Put you to work.
Oh,
though,
yeah,
too.
work is good, though. Work is
is
good.
Yeah.
So those are marvelous lessons. Anything you would do again? Like anything that if you knew what you knew then, now, if you knew what you knew now then, would you do anything different? Specifically on the property?
I mean, I probably would have moved more quickly on several things. It's at first that you aren't very certain as to what you had ought to do, because you're trying to do these things that are new and trying to understand and learn. If I knew everything I knew now right when we first started, I would have gotten busy a lot quicker.
Let me ask you this. I know we have a couple questions to wrap up, but for someone that's wanting to do this, priority lists. We talked about heat, we talked about water, we talked about food, we talked about, what's first? Like, how should you attack this?
I would say get out of debt.
Boy, you
First.
know what?
Get
That's
out of
it.
debt.
Okay.
And if that means that you buy a piece, 2 acres and an RV to live in,
Yeah. And don't think that
That's
don't think
okay.
that it's too small.
Yeah.
Don't think that it's,
and then you start to learn skills.
and you start to learn
Get out of
skills.
debt, learn skills.
And this is something that we've talked about with other folks who've done the same thing over the course of years that we've met, and that's it. I mean, the idea that you're not beholden to an earthly master, that you are out of debt, and that you can do whatever you can to downsize your life, you'll be more satisfied. You will have more satisfaction, and I believe you'll be more blessed.
Even giving up MTV, right? Some of the
Even
products.
giving up it. Right. I think the more, debt is the chains that the earthly lifestyle puts on you, the worldly lifestyle puts on you. And if you can't shake them off, then you're going to be beholden to them. You're going to have a master. You're going to have a master no matter what.
Christ says that we are to not lay up treasures here
No.
on this planet, but we're to lay them up in heaven.
So anyway.
So that's the priority list then.
Right. Your banker could be your master, or Christ can be your master.
Right.
And the two aren't congruous.
Right.
They cannot coexist. So.
Which leads me to this. Go ahead. You were gonna.
Well, I was just going to say, if this lifestyle appeals to you, it's probably God calling you.
Yep.
So
That's a good point. Which leads me to the last question, and then we're going to open it up to the audience, which is, why is this lifestyle so important to you? Why is it? I'll give you guys both a chance to respond.
I think first and foremost, this is where God has led us.
Yeah.
And it's hard to give up your will for God's will. Like, this wasn't my dream. This wasn't my plan for my life. I said before, I wanted a beautiful house in the suburbs, and
Right.
but this was God's plan for my life. So, and I trust that He loves me, and He knows what's best for me.
Amen.
Yeah.
So,
Praise the Lord.
You yield your will.
yeah.
Right.
That's
So.
it.
Amen. All right. So let's. Do we have any questions?
Okay, this is a 3-part question. All right, so you gave us a kind of a time frame. About 24 years ago, you started this journey. So how long have you been doing the off-grid?
7 years.
Almost 7
years.
Yeah.
And just for total newbies, how long was it before you guys could actually just be functional? Like, feel confident in surviving?
Get your legs under you.
Right.
And that was a couple of years.
Couple years.
It's probably a couple of years. Those first couple of years were,
They were harder for Greg because he fought it, I think,
Yeah.
than they were for me. But yeah, a
But
couple
they
years till we
still-
felt like we were confident in some skills.
there were still real challenges in those first couple of years. Learning all those systems, learning how to work the water, work the electricity, the composting toilets. I mean, those kind of things are, they just take a little while to build the skills,
Okay, and then practically speaking, I mean, how much work is it just to live every day? Because it's not just you just do it in the morning and everything just runs smooth.
It's work.
It's
It's
work,
work.
yeah.
I wouldn't have time to watch TV if we had one. We do watch movies, on our laptops. So we do have downtime, rest time.
But it is pretty continuous, right?
We
I
don't
mean,
go
you-
to the
you-
gym. We work the farm.
We work the farm. You manage that property,
Mm-hmm.
and it's something that you have to do every morning and every evening, and
In the spring, there's a lot of work. And in the winter, this fall, I was like, winter is a time for rest. All of creation rests in the winter. I was looking forward to winter.
Nonetheless,
to rest.
if you don't keep logs in the fire,
Yeah.
then the house gets cold. So I mean, it's not like turning your thermostat. You have to.
But work is a good thing.
Yeah.
It keeps you healthy.
Heck
You know,
yeah.
we were designed to work.
And so, really, it's fantastic. I think. I mean, I have fun doing it. I think to me, it's taken over that idea where you used to just watch television or have this time whenever you would, do these things that are really not beneficial towards you, and now you can do something that really is beneficial towards you.
And it builds character too.
Right.
Work builds
Well,
character.
I'm always
I don't
telling
It's
know.
my
really good
kids.
for our young people. So.
And so I was
is.
going to
Build
say, that's
character.
one of those parts of the mindset that any of us that are really considering this lifestyle really need to understand that.
Oh, boy.
I mean, it's real work.
It's real work, and if you, well, you know what? You praise God, but we're coming to a time, I believe, that we're not going to have a choice with these things,
Right.
where you're going to have to either learn these skills and learn to live and take care of yourself, or what? I don't know.
What's the other option?
What's the other option? Perish,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And that's not for me, the perishing part.
All right.
So, just a couple of things. Are you all offering like a little field trip or
Well, any of y'all are welcome to come around the place and see it anytime you want.
Okay,
Sure.
okay. And did I
if-
It's
and
not
if
much.
you'd like us to, it really isn't much.
really
I
not
mean,
much.
whenever you come and see it, it's a tiny little cabin. Like I say, it's tiny compared to the house that we left, but the property is building and growing, and the methods and means by which we can support ourselves, more importantly, are building and growing.
Okay, okay. And did I see pictures?
Yeah, so let's, why don't we show some of those pictures while the questions are coming too, and I just scroll through those pictures. Let me just say this too, and when you come, make sure you ask Melissa to make some soup. She makes a mean soup. I'm trying to tell you, Southwest soup was delicious. And you know what? We've had it
Need a lot
probably
of
a couple
soup.
times.
Really?
We had some this week.
Oh, please, come on.
So yeah, you could.
I'm
You
sure
could
it
just.
was good.
We'll continue to talk, but you can just scroll through those pictures there. Unless you want to kind of talk us through what we're seeing here. What is this?
That's my son Abram up there, and my son Abram just put the new little tiny house in the back lot of our property, and that's going to be his outhouse, and that's really a deluxe outhouse. It's 4x8. Ours is just a little 4x4,
Okay.
and just has latrine facilities. He's making a hot water shower in that thing.
We do have a bathroom inside, too.
Oh, and by the way, that's where I chopped my finger up building that
Right there.
outhouse.
Okay, so
That's our new solar panels.
That's the new solar panels, and that's the new array
there's
that we
4
built.
panels there.
And that's it. And that's just 1,300 watts of panels. It's
And you
not
just-
very much.
You just kind of dig a wire 6 inches, 12 inches under to your
Under.
house,
And
right?
it goes, you can't see it, but yeah, the power cable goes about 250
What
feet
about
to the
on
house.
cloudy days? I mean, you still get enough
You
sunlight?
get
to-
you get a lot.
some.
You'd be surprised. I mean, it takes a lot to stop it,
Okay.
and then you have reserve battery power to hold you through on the cloudy days.
All right, now what are we looking at right here?
That's the new building there. That's one of the new buildings, and
That's a garage, yeah.
Okay.
And we actually bought an RV this summer just in case we need to sleep
House
some more
people.
people.
We see the
That is our house.
and we see
That's our little-
the aluminum roof there.
Yep.
And so
That's our little
the
cabin.
gutter system. Okay.
It is earth burned, so part of it, as you can see, is
buried.
buried. The other
Mhm.
side is a porch, but
And it-
so it keeps the temperature
Yep.
not too
yeah.
cold, not too hot.
And it's really well insulated with that earth burning, and so that it holds heat,
Yeah.
Very good.
And so we burn, like I say, 3-5 cords a year. But I would suspect that if you hadn't been earth burned, you'd burn a lot more
That's
wood
our
than that.
rabbit backs of our rabbit hutches and our wood pile.
Okay. All right.
That's my first old outhouse that Abram and I built.
There's a reason why you build what is that, like a 35-degree slope or
That's a
25?
14-degree angle. That's
Okay.
the optimum angle to build a shed roof at.
Okay.
So they say.
Okay.
Abram's always like, "What about these 14 degrees?"
Do you need an outhouse if you have the composting toilets, or
No.
what's the purpose?
We
You
say
don't.
we have two baths now.
Yeah.
Okay.
When we moved in, we have an indoor bathroom with the composting toilet. And we first moved in, and I was living there with you, and I had 4 women and 3, Ava and Hannah and you, and then Abram and I, and we couldn't get a word in edgewise. And
you
so
needed
Abram
to-
said, "We're going to build an outhouse."
That's
Now,
our,
what do
And then we
sis-
said,
that's
"Now
our
we got 2
cistern.
bathrooms."
Now,
That's
what
our
are we
cistern.
looking at here?
That's a cistern, and then that's the top of that 1,200-gallon cistern.
So
And
all of these,
all the water
this is
from
the
the
drains
Mm-hmm.
running right into
Runs
that,
right
and it
into
is
that
covered, so it's
system.
running in through the side. Okay, that makes sense.
runs right into it.
Now, where does it come out into the house?
There's plumbing in there that provides a line into the kitchen where
Okay.
there's a 12-volt pump that pulls
Okay.
it and pushes it through. We really just have one wet wall, if you follow my meaning.
Mm-hmm.
There's just one place where there's one wall where water's connected to in the entire house.
Okay.
Just to keep it simple,
Okay.
you know. It's just a look at the place. That's our neighbor's joint out on the side.
So you have propane.
And that's our
We
that's
cook
our
with
one
propane.
That's our one indulgence. That's the one thing that
Our
we
cooking stove.
purchased from the outside world. It heats water and runs a stove.
Now, how long will that last you right there?
An
with that?
entire year.
Wow.
Yeah, an entire year.
And how much would something like that
Maybe
cost
that
to
cost
fill?
me $300-400 a year
For the whole year?
doesn't
for the whole year.
And you use it to heat water and to cook?
In the cook.
Okay, all right.
That's
That's
a well.
another-
I got
that's a
2.
well.
We have 2 wells on the property that that well just has a pitcher pump on top of it. You just prime that pump, and then we use it for.
Gardens.
Actually, that's a garden plot, and we'll just.
So that's a
we'll-
water source too?
Yeah, we have two wells, and we've been working towards incorporating them into the house water, but we're working on it. It's a thing that it's in progress. But we do use that for.
Hey, that's us.
It's us.
All
We
right.
do use that. We do use that to water plants, to water gardens.
Okay.
I just have a quick question since you were talking about the wells. Were those already on property or you dug
They were
those?
no, they had drilled those wells previous to us purchasing the property, and
And-
they had a young lady, as I understand it, who came out as a diviner to locate those wells.
And last question. So when you guys said that the cabin was unfinished, was it, I don't remember the term that you said as far as it was burnt into the earth?
It's
Earth
burned.
burned.
Burned,
It's
okay.
the
So did
bottom
you guys
floors-
do that or it was
No,
already
that's where it
like that?
was.
That's like that.
We've put in flooring and
We did a lot of finish work.
Yeah.
The structure was there when
Yeah.
we moved in. We've done
we've
countless hours of work for just keeping it up and messing around with it and changing things. I would always be on the lookout for, Melissa had mentioned that double sink. I bought that off of a guy down in, I was running to Murfreesboro. I was down in Nashville, and a guy had a 400-pound concrete sink that I pulled my pickup truck in. He's like, "Are you by yourself?" I was like, "How are we getting this on the truck?" I was like, "You got a dolly? We'll get it on the truck." And we got it. And so we did a lot of those kind of
there
things.
was this awful kitchen like you
Oh,
would find
boy.
in like an
It
old
was
camp.
awful.
Okay.
So we
Yeah,
eventually
gutted
gutted
all
that. We
that.
lived with that for a couple of years, so we gutted that out and put new kitchen stuff.
And I'm
in.
gonna,
you
I'm
did
gonna
it,
finish
though.
it
Yeah.
one of
You did
these.
it, yeah.
I'm gonna finish it one of these days.
It's true.
All right, we got one last question.
Quick question. You had mentioned that there's something to do all the time in the morning and in the evening. How do you balance that with your work?
I think that's the hardest part.
That's a good
We have
question.
our foot in 2 different worlds, it feels like, and that's probably the hardest part. I always felt like if we could just like leave the world completely and just focus
Like
on
live on the property.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that would be easier than.
It is difficult.
It is
though.
very
The
difficult. Mm-hmm.
time management is difficult, especially when Melissa began a business about a year ago, and previous to that, she was at home all the time and was able to manage a lot of the things that happened there. Well, I was, working 50-hour weeks or whatever we worked, and then things changed, and she was working and I was home, and now I'm transitioning back into the working world again. And so right now
Ava is stepping up.
Right now, our children, our daughter steps up. She actually does
building character.
She actually does the morning
That's right.
and evening farming,
Yes.
and there's several animals that we have. I don't know, dozens of animals, goats and rabbits and chickens and things like that. and they all produce, and she takes care of those for the
And I would
most part.
imagine too, if you don't have a lot of animals, then it would reduce the workload to some
Yes.
degree, I would
Yes.
imagine,
To
right?
some degree.
Yeah, but there's still work,
In the summer,
you know.
gardening. Last year, my son and my daughter-in-law said, "Hey, we're going to make a garden," and they took the tractor and they bottom plowed 1,400 square feet, and we thought, "Oh wow." Now it's this huge garden, and it really takes hours and hours a day to maintain it and to keep it producing, and so they help us with that, and we just don't really, we take all those things that you used to do and turn them into good lively processes that we enjoy doing for the most part. Sometimes it's not enjoyable.
Well, you guys have definitely given us a really good look this evening at off-grid living, self-sustaining living, and we can just tell in your joy that this is something that you enjoy doing. This is something that
Absolutely.
you don't look back and regret at all.
We wouldn't go back.
And we moved from California 3 years ago now, and before that, and I was raised on a farm. I mean, it was a small farm. We grew all of our own food, and other than just kind of essentials that you would need from a grocery store.
Right.
And I remember when I was younger, I just didn't like it. I really wanted to go to the larger city, but when you get older, and you really see what life is all about, and especially when you find Christ, you want to go back to that lifestyle. And I think a lot of people right now, they're at a point where they're seeing all of the crime in the cities, they're seeing all of the rioting and seditions everywhere, and they're choosing to go back now. It's absolutely difficult to find plots of land now. I remember there's a website that I would always go to called Billy Land. Have you guys ever heard of Billy Land? And so all over the U.S. they would buy up farms, subdivide it, and then sell it in chunks. 6 acres, 8 acres, 10 acres.
Yep.
And there was always property available. And so this week I went to Billy Land just to see if there's any property available in Kentucky. It's all gone. Not one
Wow.
plot. People are moving in droves from cities and from little towns. They're just wanting to be out in nature. And so I would encourage you that if this is something that you really think that God is calling you to do, and I believe it is, that you pray. That prayer is a vital part of helping you to find a place. If you pray and say, Lord, I really want to obey you in this particular area. Show me the way. Show me what steps. And then don't just pray and live life like you're living it. Pray and then go look. Right?
Fervent prayer.
God answers the prayer. Every sincere prayer God will answer. But if a bird prays for food and stays in the nest, then they starve. You pray and you say, Lord, where is the property? And you go look for it, and then you'll find it. So I would encourage you to pray. I want to thank you guys for coming and
Thank you.
just giving us a small peek into your life and what the Lord is doing in your life. We have only, I believe, I think everyone here would probably say the same thing, we've only probably scratched the surface. And we're going to take you up on that yes. I think we want a tour. We want a tour, guys, right? For those of you that are not local, then maybe we can shoot when we go to your farm, and you guys can show us. And we're going to be trying to look for ways that we can learn as much as we can from you guys. So I hope you don't mind. Just invite us in. We'll be there, okay? And but we want to thank you too for joining us. And we know that prayer meeting was a little bit different, but I know I've been getting a lot of questions about moving to the country, and I hope that this has been a blessing for you. I'm sure it has been. It has been for all of us here. And we want to end our evening. Is there anything that you want to say in just wrapping up? By the way, if people want to get in touch with you, how do they get in touch with you? Do you have a website or anything like that?
I have a website. They could email me,
Okay.
melissa@wildtimeherbal.com.
Okay.
I opened a little herbal apothecary a year ago.
Did you guys get that? We'll be sure to drop it in the lower
Yeah,
thirds.
you could email me there.
Yeah, okay. So Melissa at,
wildtimeherbal.com.
okay,
And
all
that's
right.
THY.
Yes, THY.
Okay, all
ME,
right,
yes.
very good, very good. And we're certainly going to be coming to your store. We haven't been there, but we want to
Yes.
come, right? And
It's
we're looking.
expanding. She just opened up. She's just acquired more
Okay.
square footage. And
Okay, so we're looking forward to that. We're looking forward to that too. Thank you guys again. Why don't we close with a word of prayer? Do you have any final words that you'd like to say?
just thank you for having us. thank you for the interest. It's very nice.
The pleasure's been all
You know,
ours.
if there's anything we can do to serve you guys, we'd love to.
Just take us and show us how to find edible plants. That would be great. All right, let's pray. Why don't we bow our heads? Father in heaven, thank you so much for being here with us today. We've learned a lot about heating, about water sources. We've learned how to find edible plants. And above all, Lord, we've learned that there is a lifestyle that you've called us to and you're calling people to all over the world to live. And if this is new to us, I ask, Lord, that you would show us the way. Show us exactly how we are to find our own country property, our own homestead. Show us, Father, what to do next. Show us how to get out of debt. And give us a desire to not be caught up in the cares of this life. Lord, what Melissa and Greg, what they've done for their family, for their children, it will leave a legacy for years to come. And just for their children in particular. And I just pray that as they continue to live this lifestyle, that you would bless them tremendously, bless their marriage, bless their home, bless their children, and just prosper them in all that they do, Lord. And I pray for our congregation here, our church family, and for all of our listeners. Lord, hopefully this has given us courage to take the next step in our own journey, to remove ourselves from some of the things that the world has asked of us, demanded from us. As Greg said earlier, Lord, we want to serve you. We want you to be our master. And so we pray for the faith to make the move, and we absolutely pray that whatever we do would bring you honor and glory. We know you have a place for us, and so we give you praise and honor even now. Thank you so much again for hearing our prayer. In Jesus' name, amen. Thanks, everyone. We look forward to seeing you again soon. May the Lord bless and keep you. And by the way, if you're wanting more information about how to get in touch with Greg and Melissa, you can visit us online at livingjustbyfaith.org. That's livingjustbyfaith.org. And we'll be sure to archive this so you can watch it at a later date. Thanks so much. May the Lord bless and keep you.